Shadows in the corner office. The 68th floor of the Nexus Innovations Tower gleamed with polished glass and steel, a testament to Vincent Blackwood's empire. Felicity Winters moved silently through the corridors, arranging files and preparing the morning briefing before her boss arrived. At 29, she possessed a mind like a steel trap and organizational skills that kept the billion-dollar company running smoothly. Yet she remained virtually invisible to the man she served. Coffee. Black, the Singapore investors called. Notes on my desk, Vincent barked as he strode past her desk, not bothering to make eye contact. His tall figure disappeared into the corner office, the door closing with a soft click. Good morning to you too, Felicity muttered under her breath, smoothing down her modest pencil skirt. After 3 years as his executive assistant, she'd grown accustomed to his dismissive treatment. Vincent Blackwood, tech billionaire extraordinaire, had revolutionized artificial intelligence with his Nexus platforms, but remained emotionally disconnected from everyone around him. Felicity slipped into his office with the requested items, setting them precisely where he expected them. Vincent's dark eyes remained fixed on his computer screen, his angular features illuminated by the blue light. At 38, he possessed the sharp good looks of a predator, all angles and intensity. The notes on the Palmer acquisition need revision. The projections are off, he said, still not looking up. They're not off, Felicity replied quietly. I triple-checked them against the quarterly reports. Vincent's eyes finally flicked to her face, surprise registering briefly before his expression hardened again. Fine, that's all. Dismissed again, Felicity returned to her desk, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. Despite everything, she admired Vincent's brilliance. His vision had transformed Nexus from a startup to a technological powerhouse in under a decade. His coldness was simply the price of genius, or so she told herself. The day progressed like countless others until an anomaly appeared in the security logs for Project Lumina, Nexus's groundbreaking AI advancement. Felicity's brow furrowed as she noticed unusual access patterns. Someone had been viewing restricted files outside of normal hours. By 8 that evening, the office had emptied except for Vincent's office, where light still spilled under the door. Felicity hesitated, then began a deeper dive into the security logs. The breach was sophisticated, almost undetectable, but definitely deliberate. At midnight, she'd traced the intrusion to a terminal belonging to Dominic Mercer, the vice president of strategic development. Her heart raced. Dominic had access to everything, including Vincent's upcoming presentation to their biggest competitor, Helix Technologies, who had recently made overtures about a potential merger. She printed the evidence and approached Vincent's door, knocking softly. When no answer came, she pushed it open slightly. The sight froze her in place. Vincent stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, his normally perfect posture slumped, tie loosened. In his hand was a framed photograph she'd never seen before, a woman with kind eyes and a young boy with Vincent's unmistakable features. It's been 15 years today, Mom, he whispered to the photograph. Everything I built was for you, to make you proud. Felicity stepped back silently, heart pounding. The Vincent Blackwood she knew, cold, demanding, untouchable, had vanished, replaced by someone haunted and human. She was witnessing something no one at Nexus had ever seen, vulnerability beneath the armor. Before she could retreat, Vincent turned. Their eyes locked, his widening in shock before narrowing dangerously. How long have you been standing there? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Felicity clutched the security reports to her chest like a shield. Long enough to know someone's trying to sabotage Project Lumina, she answered, choosing to ignore what she'd witnessed. And I think I know who. The midnight revelation. Vincent's expression shifted from anger to sharp interest as Felicity handed him the security reports. The moonlight streaming through the windows cast half his face in shadow, while illuminating the other. A perfect visual metaphor for the man himself. Dominic Mercer, Vincent murmured, scanning the evidence. I promoted him myself 3 years ago. He's been accessing the Project Lumina files at odd hours and duplicating sections of code, Felicity explained, pointing to specific entries. And he's had 4 meetings with Helix Technologies that aren't in his official calendar. Vincent's dark eyes studied her with new intensity. How did you find this when my entire security team missed it? I notice patterns, she replied simply, and I pay attention to details others ignore. For the first time in 3 years, Vincent Blackwood truly looked at Felicity Winters. Her intelligence shone in her amber eyes and determination was etched into the set of her jaw. How had he missed this? "We need to be careful," he said. "If Dominic is selling our technology to Helix, he's already 10 steps ahead." The clock struck 1 as they formulated a plan. Vincent would proceed with tomorrow's presentation as if nothing was amiss, but with subtle misinformation embedded in the files. Meanwhile, Felicity would monitor Dominic's activities. As dawn approached, exhaustion softened their usual professional boundaries. Vincent ordered breakfast delivered, and they ate together in his office as the city awakened below. "Why did you stay so late tonight?" Vincent asked suddenly. Felicity hesitated. "I've always believed in what Nexus is building. Project Lumina could change how people interact with technology forever." "That sounds more like passion than job dedication," Vincent observed. "Maybe it's both," she admitted. 3 days later, disaster struck during Vincent's presentation to the board. The projections crashed, displaying corrupted data that made Project Lumina look fundamentally flawed. Board members exchanged concerned glances as Vincent struggled to recover. "If I may," Felicity's voice cut through the tension as she stepped forward from her corner position. Vincent's eyes widened in surprise as she connected her tablet to the display system. "What we're seeing is actually evidence of the project's adaptability," she explained smoothly, bringing up alternative visualizations she'd prepared as contingencies. The system identified incompatible parameters and protected itself, exactly what advanced AI should do. Her clear explanation and quick thinking transformed the potential disaster into a demonstration of the project's sophistication. The board members nodded approvingly as Vincent seamlessly incorporated her points into his presentation. Later in his office, Vincent paced. "You saved me in there. How did you understand the system failure so quickly?" "Because I've read every line of the Lumina documentation," Felicity admitted. "In my spare time." Vincent stopped pacing. "In your spare time," he repeated slowly. "You've been my assistant for 3 years and I never knew you had such expertise." "You never asked," she said simply. That night marked the beginning of their partnership against Dominic's sabotage. They worked late into the evenings, strengthening Project Lumina's security while setting traps for the saboteur. Their collaboration revealed dimensions to each other previously hidden. Vincent's unexpected sense of humor emerging during late-night strategy sessions, Felicity's brilliant technological insights surprising him repeatedly. One evening, a sudden thunderstorm darkened the city, lightning illuminating the office in dramatic flashes. As they huddled over a particularly complex section of code, the power flickered and failed. Emergency lights cast a soft glow over them as they found themselves standing unexpectedly close. "Felicity," Vincent said, her name sounding different in his voice, almost reverent. "I've been blind." "About Dominic?" she asked, her pulse quickening. "About you," he replied, his hand tentatively reaching for hers. "You've been right in front of me all this time, brilliant and dedicated, and I never truly saw you." Lightning flashed again, illuminating the tension between them. For a moment, Felicity could see past his carefully constructed walls to the man beneath. Passionate, vulnerable, and suddenly very present. The building's backup generator hummed to life, breaking the spell. They stepped apart as the lights returned, but something fundamental had shifted. Vincent Blackwood had finally seen Felicity Winters, and nothing at Nexus Innovations would ever be the same. Power plays and hidden truths. The morning after the thunderstorm, whispers circulated through Nexus Innovations. Executive assistants weren't supposed to emerge from the CEO's office at dawn, hair slightly disheveled and carrying the same clothes from yesterday. Felicity felt the stares as she walked to her desk, her professional armor slightly dented by exhaustion and the lingering electricity of almost something with Vincent. "Quite the dedication to your position," Dominic Mercer remarked, leaning against her desk with practiced casualness. His perfectly tailored suit and calculated smile made him the picture of corporate success. "Working all night on what exactly?" "Just catching up on some projects," Felicity replied evenly, noting how his eyes narrowed at her vague response. "Vincent seems to value your input lately. Unusual for someone in your position." The pause was deliberate, insinuating. Before Felicity could respond, Vincent's voice cut through the tension. "Ms. Winters' position is about to change, actually." He stood in his doorway, commanding attention in a charcoal suit that emphasized his athletic frame. "She'll be joining the Project Lumina team as my special advisor. Effective immediately." Dominic's smile froze. "That's quite a promotion. From assistant to advisory role? People might question the qualifications." "Her qualifications saved yesterday's board presentation," Vincent replied coldly, "something my VP of Strategic Development should have prevented in the first place." The gauntlet had been thrown. Dominic nodded stiffly and walked away, but not before Felicity caught the flash of hatred in his eyes. "You didn't have to do that," she told Vincent when they were alone. "I didn't do it for you," he replied, but the slight softening around his eyes betrayed him. "I did it for Lumina." And Nexus. The following weeks transformed Felicity's world. Her small desk was replaced by an office adjacent to Vincent's. Her insights were sought in meetings where she had previously been invisible. And Vincent, the man who once barely acknowledged her, now sought her opinion on everything from code, architecture to corporate strategy. Their days blurred into nights as they worked to strengthen Lumina while gathering evidence against Dominic. The sabotage attempts grew more sophisticated, confirming their suspicions but proving maddeningly difficult to trace conclusively. "The Abbott Foundation Gala is tomorrow night," Vincent mentioned one evening as they reviewed security protocols. "As my advisor on Lumina, you should attend." Felicity looked up in surprise. "The gala is for major investors and executives. I'd be completely out of place." "You belong there more than half the people who'll attend," Vincent insisted. "Besides, Dominic will be there, likely meeting with Helix representatives. We need to watch him." The next evening, Felicity stood before the mirror in a dress she'd splurged on. Midnight blue, elegant but bold. For once, she didn't try to blend into the background. When she entered the grand ballroom of the Abbott Hotel, conversations paused briefly. Vincent, in conversation with investors near the entrance, turned as if sensing her presence. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly as he took in her transformation. "Ms. Winters," he greeted formally, though his eyes communicated something far less professional. "Allow me to introduce you to our investors." Throughout the evening, Felicity moved through the room with newfound confidence. She discussed Lumina's potential with genuine passion, impressing investors who had previously looked through her. Across the room, she spotted Dominic in close conversation with the CEO of Helix Technologies, their expressions serious. "They're planning something," Vincent murmured, appearing at her side with 2 champagne flutes. Dominic keeps checking his phone. "Whatever he's waiting for, it's happening tonight." As the evening progressed, Felicity noticed Dominic's triumphant smile as he checked his phone one final time. He caught her watching and raised his glass mockingly before disappearing into the crowd. "We need to leave," she told Vincent urgently. "Now." In his limousine, Felicity explained her fears. "The way he looked at me, he knows we're onto him and he's made his move." Vincent's hand found hers in the darkened car. "Whatever he's done, we'll counter it. Together." The word hung between them, charged with meaning beyond their professional alliance. Vincent leaned closer, his eyes questioning. When she didn't pull away, he closed the distance, his lips meeting hers with unexpected gentleness that quickly flared into something more urgent. For one breathless moment, Felicity surrendered to the kiss, to the weeks of tension and growing connection. Then reality crashed back. The powerful billionaire and his former assistant, the oldest cliché in business. She pulled away, her hand against his chest. "I can't be another conquest, Vincent. I won't survive it." His expression shifted from desire to something more vulnerable. "Is that what you think this is?" Before he could continue, his phone rang with the emergency tone reserved for security breaches. The screen displayed a message that made his face go pale. "Someone's downloaded the entire Lumina codebase," he said grimly, "using your credentials." The fall and rise, the Nexus Innovations boardroom felt arctic as Felicity faced the accusatory stares of the executive team. Security footage showed someone using her keycard at 2:17 a.m., precisely when she and Vincent had been leaving the gala. The evidence seemed irrefutable. Login records, transfer logs, even email correspondence with Helix Technologies, all meticulously documented and all tied to her credentials. "I was framed," she stated firmly, though her voice threatened to crack. "I've been helping investigate the security breach, not causing it." Dominic Mercer's sympathetic expression couldn't hide the triumph in his eyes. "We all want to believe the best of people we've trusted. he told Vincent, who stood silently at the window, his back to the room. But the evidence is overwhelming. Mr. Blackwood, the head of security prompted. Your decision? The silence stretched painfully before Vincent turned. His face was an expressionless mask that Felicity recognized. The same cold exterior he'd worn for years before she'd glimpsed the man beneath. Ms. Winter's employment is terminated. Effective immediately, he announced, his voice devoid of emotion. Security will escort her from the building and notify the authorities. The words hit like physical blows, not just fired but reported to the police. As security guards appeared at the doorway, Felicity sought Vincent's eyes one final time, searching for any sign that he believed her. She found nothing but ice. You'll regret trusting him, she said quietly, nodding toward Dominic. Then she allowed herself to be escorted out, head held high despite the whispers and stares that followed her through the building. Outside, standing on the sidewalk with only her purse and the crushing weight of injustice, Felicity felt a determination crystallize within her. 3 years of invisibility had taught her to observe everything, remember everything, and Vincent's lessons in corporate warfare these past weeks had shown her how to fight. She checked into a small hotel using cash and began methodically planning her counterattack. Without Nexus resources, she would need to be creative. Her first step was contacting Javier Rodriguez, a brilliant security analyst she'd befriended during a company hackathon. I need to prove I was framed, she explained over coffee in a crowded cafe where they wouldn't be noticed. Javier studied her with thoughtful eyes. Vincent Blackwood doesn't make mistakes, Felicity. If he fired you, he made a mistake this time, she interrupted. Will you help me or not? Within days, Felicity had established a makeshift investigation center in her hotel room. Javier provided backdoor access to non-classified Nexus systems, allowing her to trace the digital breadcrumbs of her framing. Meanwhile, she carefully observed Dominic's movements through social media and business publications. At Nexus, Vincent threw himself into damage control. Project Lumina's stolen code needed to be completely rewritten before Helix could implement it. He worked around the clock, driving his team relentlessly, ignoring the hollow feeling that had nothing to do with the corporate espionage. The timestamps don't match, he muttered one night, reviewing the security logs for the 1,000th time. Something about Felicity's supposed emails to Helix struck him as wrong, the writing style too formal, too different from her usual precise communication. He began his own quiet investigation, careful to keep his doubts from Dominic, who had stepped seamlessly into a role as his trusted advisor. 2 weeks after her dismissal, Felicity had her breakthrough. Analyzing patterns in the system access logs revealed a sophisticated proxy server that had been used to mask the true origin of the commands executed under her credentials. The server traced back to a shell company that, after days of research, she connected to Dominic's brother-in-law, but proving the connection legally would require access to Dominic's personal devices, something impossible without Nexus resources. Vincent made his discovery independently, finding irregularities in the project funding that Dominic oversaw, small diversions expertly hidden, leading to numbered accounts that shouldn't exist. When he attempted to locate Felicity to share his findings, he discovered she'd seemingly vanished. The truth hit him with crushing force. He had betrayed the one person who had truly seen him, who had worked tirelessly to protect his company, who had begun to breach the walls around his heart, and now she was gone. Felicity, meanwhile, had relocated to her grandmother's small cottage on the coast, fortifying herself for the final confrontation. She had enough circumstantial evidence to raise serious questions about Dominic, but nothing definitive enough to clear her name. As she stood on the windswept beach, watching storm clouds gather on the horizon, she faced her hardest decision: return to Nexus with incomplete evidence and risk everything, or walk away and start fresh elsewhere. The first raindrops began to fall as she heard the sound of tires on the gravel driveway behind the cottage. Someone had found her sanctuary. Turning slowly, she faced the approaching storm, both literal and figurative, with quiet determination. Visibility at last. The wind whipped Felicity's hair across her face as she watched Vincent Blackwood emerge from his sleek black car, raindrops already darkening his suit. For a moment they regarded each other across the distance, the billionaire and his former assistant, connected by betrayal and something deeper neither had fully acknowledged. "How did you find me?" she called over the rising wind. "Your grandmother's obituary mentioned this place," he replied, moving closer. "And I remembered you once said the ocean reminded you of her." Lightning flashed, illuminating the raw emotion on his face. Something Felicity had seen only once before, the night she'd discovered him with his mother's photograph. "I was wrong," Vincent said, rainwater streaming down his face. "About everything." Inside the cottage, Vincent placed a laptop on the weathered dining table and opened files showing what he'd discovered. Irregularities in Dominic's financial records, discrepancies in meeting schedules, and most damning, fragments of code identical to the stolen Lumina architecture appearing in a private Helix repository. "I've been blind twice," Vincent admitted. "First to who you really were, and then to Dominic's deception when it mattered most." Felicity opened her own laptop, revealing her parallel investigation. The proxy server connects to his brother-in-law's company. He created an elaborate digital trail, but he couldn't perfectly mimic my writing patterns or work habits. Their evidence combined formed an ironclad case. But Felicity hesitated. "Why should I help you save Nexus after how quickly you believed the worst of me?" Vincent's shoulders slumped slightly. "You shouldn't," he acknowledged. "I betrayed your trust when you needed it most. But this isn't about me or Nexus anymore. It's about stopping someone who was willing to destroy your life for his ambition." The storm raged through the night as they formulated their strategy, professional discussion occasionally giving way to more personal reckonings. By dawn, as the storm cleared, they had both a plan and a fragile new understanding. "I can't go back to being invisible," Felicity stated as they prepared to leave. "Not for Nexus, not for you, not for anyone." "I don't want you to," Vincent replied simply. 3 days later, they executed their plan during Nexus's quarterly board meeting. Vincent presented the company's recovery efforts following the security breach, with Dominic prominently positioned as the architect of the solution. "And now," Vincent announced, "I'd like to address the actual breach, not the one we've been discussing, but the real corporate espionage that's been happening under our noses." The boardroom doors opened to reveal Felicity. Gasps and murmurs swept the room as she walked confidently to stand beside Vincent. "Ms. Winters has been conducting an independent investigation," Vincent continued smoothly, "at my request." The lie protecting her unauthorized investigation was delivered with such conviction that even Felicity almost believed it. Dominic's face drained of color as they methodically presented their evidence, culminating in records of his offshore accounts receiving payments from Helix subsidiaries. "This is absurd," Dominic sputtered, but his protest weakened as Vincent revealed the final piece of evidence. A recorded conversation between Dominic and Helix's CTO, discussing the stolen Lumina architecture, captured by security measures Vincent had quietly implemented after Felicity's dismissal. By meeting's end, security was escorting Dominic out, while the board voted unanimously to pursue legal action. In the aftermath, Vincent approached Felicity in the hallway. "I'd like to offer you a position," he began formally, aware of curious eyes watching them, "as Chief Innovation Officer for Project Lumina." "The board has already approved it." Felicity smiled slightly. "I'm declining." Vincent's composure slipped momentarily. "What?" "I've learned too much about myself these past weeks," she explained. "I'm starting my own tech consultancy, focusing on security architecture. You're leaving." His voice held a note she'd never heard before, something close to panic. "I'm becoming visible," she corrected gently. "On my own terms." Vincent studied her for a long moment before a slow smile transformed his face. "What would you say to a different kind of partnership?" he asked. "Nexus could be your first client, and perhaps its CEO could take you to dinner, not as your boss but as someone who admires your brilliance and courage, someone who would like the chance to truly see you as an equal." Around them, the office continued its usual rhythm, but for Vincent and Felicity, everything had changed. The invisible assistant had stepped fully into the light, finally seen by the man who had overlooked her for so long, and by herself. "I think," Felicity replied with newfound confidence, "that would be an excellent place to start." As they walked together toward the elevator, employees stared openly at the transformation. Vincent Blackwood, notoriously cold and distant, was smiling down at Felicity Winters with unmistakable admiration. And Felicity, once a shadow in the corner office, now moved through the space she had quietly managed for years with the assurance of someone who knew exactly who she was and where she belonged. No longer invisible, but brilliantly, undeniably present.